Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this breakfast edition, this brunch edition of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies. Home of the best chat on the internet, although this might be a little early for them. And, of course, the place where we go above and beyond the review. We've got a great show for you today. Of course, we are looking at Baahubali, the beginning, just part one of a two-part Indian fantasy epic. And we've got a great guest lined up for you today. Map, because I'm not used to being here this morning. I am going to bring on my co-host with the most, the hopefully by either my katapa to his to my Baahubali or the other way around. It really doesn't matter as long as we're in the fight together and he's not stabbing me in the back. Mr. Jim Chaboyko.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. I wish I had a sword all of a sudden so I could raise it to the heavens or something to that effect. But yeah, no weapons down in the spare bedroom here.
No. Just, the old study there was, but
there's an electric vacuum thing, or I don't know, floor cleaner, but that's about it. Yeah, how you doing?
Good. I'm as you can tell, I'm a little kind of off balance. That said, we are going to have a great show. We do have a great guest. But before we got started, I did want to chat with you, Jim. Guess a couple of items. One specifically, and I'll see if I can't bring it up here. I had sent you a link to a video from one of my, I gotta say, one of my favorite YouTubers. Where are we here?
Regarding our last week's movie.
Regarding Black Widow. And sent it to you yesterday.
Yep.
And where are we here? What is it? Pretentious? Help me out, my friend.
The name?
Yeah, never mind. I got it.
Okay, good.
There we go. Okay, so here's the it's from Captain Midnight.
Yes, yeah, good.
The huge problem with Black Widow. So you didn't watch it, eh?
No, I did.
Okay. Well, what did you think? Do you like?
Well, he's not wrong. I mean, I tend to. It's funny.
The gist of it, folks, is, and I will put a link in a pinned comment, but the gist of it is he's really saying that it's the third act is really just your standard Marvel third act, and it could have been so much more interesting if the villain was more interesting, and which I think we touched on near the end of our chat last week.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what just a little bit of a fine point on it is that he said that the movie, like a lot of the Marvel movies, with the exception of something like Ragnarok or what have you, the first couple acts have their own personality, and then they have to get on book. You know, they have to get with the program, and then it sort of dissolves into various generic fights. I think you used the word generic MCU fight scenes.
One fight scene that has been created with pre-visualization and everything before the director's hired, before the script's finished.
Yeah, and they quoted one director's, they cited one director, a female director, leaving the project, didn't even sign up. It was offered to her. Yeah. And they said, fight scenes, don't worry about it. We've got that handled. So that did not appeal to her. And I think one of the main points of Captain Midnight's thesis is that that they basically lose a lot of their personality in that third act in trying to get on board. So, I mean, he's got some good points. For me, reviewing MCU movies, a lot of people take it a lot more seriously. I mean, I sort of look at them as entertainments and escapism and that sort of thing. And you can see that there's structural issues, that kind of thing. And I mean, it didn't come up in last week's program. There was something a little bit missing for me, and I couldn't really put my finger on it, which is probably why I didn't verbalize it. But yeah, I think he's got some good points here. He said good cast, good characters, but there's something in the storytelling that was a little bit lacking. And
I think it really, I think we were, let's say, a little more gentle with the film. In part because we're kind of judging it against other MCU films, and where it's like I'm still confident in what we said, confident in my take on it, but I do think he does add something to the conversation, but it really would, and I've been in some discussions online about Loki changes everything for the MCU, and I mentioned this Thursday night on Rob's Hot Mic. I'm saying it again now. It's like, no, it doesn't. It didn't change jack for the MCU. It said, oh, we need a new villain and we need a new battlefield. So we made both bigger. Okay. So where's the fundamental change? Now, and I think this is perhaps not for Captain Midnight, but I do think that it's an unfair critique, an unfair criticism of the MCU when they say, oh, it could have been so much more. And it's like, or it's not, it could have gone, like if they had decided to do, no, we're going to do a kind of a gritty spy thriller with these characters, then it'd be like, oh, that's a big change. They're going in a different direction, like a la the Bourne Identity.
Yes,
which really, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think that set up the new Bond. And the new Bond is a lot more interesting than the old Bond was.
Yeah.
And I think if they did that with this, that would signal either, whoa, they really wanted to be different with the Black Widow film, or they are taking the MCU in a different direction. And right now, I don't see why they would need to. I think, and yeah, it would really be, wow, that would be different. That'd be like a reboot. We're all burnt out of the MCU, and they're going, well, what about this?
Yeah.
Because we have not reached peak MCU.
No. And, you have to think, I mean, he does talk about the road not taken in this movie. One of the other points is that the Rachel Weisz character, really quite horrible. And I think one of his objections is they didn't expound upon that, because she really is a horrible, what she does, her own faux daughters end up paying the price, and she's a bit of a sociopath, but I think it may be a moral thing in that she doesn't pay for those sins in Black Widow, right? And maybe that Captain Midnight didn't say that, but I was sort of wondering if that, like, he said they didn't sort of act upon her character. To me, that maybe means, should she have at the end, she just sort of, like, they have a little family moment and they go off together to whatever next project. But, and
several years later, they'll cut back in.
Oh, yeah. But she doesn't pay for any of her crimes. So maybe that's one of the aspects of it.
There's no reckoning for her. No.
Yeah.
Their only redemptive act is kind of built into she flip sides to the right side.
Let's do this together. Yeah. It's like Green Goblin and Spider-Man fighting Sandman together, or, what have you. But
as Black Widow goes off to bear everyone else's guilty consciences.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too is that if you were going to do something different, this would probably have been the perfect movie to do it, because it's a little bit of except for the Florence Pugh character of Yelena.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a terminal movie there. There's like a terminal lake. There's nothing except for Florence Pugh, nothing coming out of it. It all just sort of ends up. It's a final destination. I'm thinking, for Scarlett Johansson's character there. So
yeah.
So
okay.
I mean, there were some really interesting points.
Yeah, no, it's a great video, and what I liked about it is it adds to our conversation, not necessarily. I didn't feel like, well, that's or even, wow, we really missed the boat there. I was like, oh no, this is just, and I wanted to bring it to your attention, but also to our audience's attention. And like I said, I will pin it in.
His is a little more fine-grained, and the other thing is I didn't want to make Florence Pugh angry, so that's...
when I can understand that.
Just kidding.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to do this. Before we introduce our guests, I'm going to jump to... we usually do this much later in our live stream, in our show, but I figure I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to beg everyone for a like now.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm also going to beg for a subscription if you haven't already. And last but certainly not least, last but certainly not least, let's set up my incredibly well-prepared co-host. Please ring the bell.
That's what we got. Belly is about 2,000 miles that way, so didn't make
All
it
right.
into the travel bag.
I think here's the order. I am going to set up the film, do the social nutrition checklist thing, and then we'll bring in our guest, and then we'll get into it. Sound good, Jim?
Yes. Yeah, you bet.
All right. Just going to... All righty, everybody. Yes, we're looking at BAAHUBALI. BAAHUBALI, the beginning. From IMDb, here's the log line. In ancient India, an adventurous and daring man becomes involved in a decades-old feud between two warring peoples. I wrote this or copied this before I watched the film. Now that I've seen the film, I'm like, that's not quite accurate. Anyway, it's directed by S.S. Rajamouli and written by him from a story or series of stories by his father, Vijayendra Prasad, which I think is just all kinds of cool. It stars, of course, Prabhas in the eponymous or in the titled name BAAHUBALI. It also stars Rana, Daggubati, Tamannaah, Anushka, Shetty, Ramya, Krishna, Sathyaraj, and Nassar. And our guest will correct my pronunciation shortly. It's actually part one, and really, truly a part one of a two-parter. And not going to lie, I started watching the second part almost immediately after. Haven't finished it yet. Now, as far as the ideological or the social nutrition checklist, would it earn a reframe stamp? Good Lord, it would not. Is it union made? You know what? You got to leave the question mark there. I can't read the credits as well. I wasn't able to find out. Perhaps it's something our guest can inform us on, or I got to figure out a system because I think we're going to watch more Indian films, and so I got to figure that out. Would it pass the Bechdel test? There is one incredibly brief scene with two named women talking to each other, not about a man. So, yes. And then last, but certainly not least, is there class consciousness? No. And we'll get more into that when we dive into the meaning. So with that out of the way, without much further ado, let's bring... Let's get me out of the way here, and let us bring on our wonderful guest. He's been one of the OG friends of the show, a previous collaborator, our man in Chennai, Mr. Shashank Vchari.
Hey,
How you
everybody.
doing?
Doing great. Great to be back.
It's great to have you back, man.
I think it's 9 months, right, since our previous collaboration?
Yeah, I believe so.
Should be around
We looked at Three Idiots in the Fall, and it's been too long, Shashank.
It's been too long. Yep.
Way too long. Before we get into the actual production of the show, how are my pronunciations?
I think they were about 70% correct. I mean, it was pretty good, actually. Yep.
Which ones can you tell us so at least we know we're at least getting it right once?
Okay, it's not Rana Daggubati. It's Rana Daggubati.
Daggubati.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And then what about Tamannaah?
Tamannaah was actually correct. I mean, it was pretty good.
Good. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then Anushka Shetty.
Anushka. That should be Anushka, exactly.
Anushka
Yeah,
Shetty.
Shetty is correct.
Okay. And then Ramya Krishna.
Ramya.
Ramya.
Yeah.
Ramya. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Sathyaraj.
Satya. Yeah. Satya.
Satyaraj.
Yeah.
Sathyaraj.
Exactly.
And then Nassar.
Nassar is correct. Yep.
All right. Okay,
Sounds good.
folks. It's a good omen that we're starting that way.
Yes.
All right, gents and Shashank. I mean, you have seen the show since. Of course, we've kind of tweaked our presentation a bit, but we do start with what we like to call the quick review. And we just kind of a round table. Give us your 1-2 minute review of the film. Imagine you're on NPR or something. Anyway, Shashank, you are our company. Why don't you start us off?
I think going into any film of this nature, it requires a certain suspension of disbelief because it's a big fantasy epic. And if you have that, I think you will completely enjoy this movie. The best thing about this is right from the get-go, you never feel bored. There's never a single moment when you're bored. And I think, if you're in for the ride, you would absolutely enjoy this movie. And I think it's more tuned to an Indian sensibility rather than a foreign sensibility because the characters are very much from the Indian epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata. They're not exactly taken from our Indian epics, but they are a variant from our Indian epics. So I think if you go in with the mindset that you're going to have a great 2.5 hour ride, I think you'll completely enjoy it. And to be honest, I won't say this is one of my favorite Indian movies, but I absolutely love it. And I think it's a film which completely changed Indian cinema for the better. So I enjoyed it completely.
Well, you'll have to comment more on that later. Jim, give us your quick review.
Quick review, yeah. It's kind of I was sort of just trying to describe it earlier, a little bit balls to the wall in that it was advertised or it was brought to our attention by a Globe and Mail article. The 21 action movies you should check out in the summer of 2021. So things like Mad Max, Fury Road, movies with that kind of crazy, unrestrained quality. And so this one does obviously fit the bill if you've had a chance to see it. It's really like 2.5 hour long rock video almost, or music video. A lot of slow motion, a lot of zooms, and it's got its own real sensibility. So I think you have to park a lot of your, this isn't My Dinner with Andre. So if, you have to park some of those sensibilities at the door. And just part of the fun of watching this is, as we've discussed before, if you're watching a foreign movie, you're unfamiliar with some of the players, probably most of the players, and geographical locations, landscapes, that kind of thing. I did look up the kingdom that this is about, and that was apparently a kingdom at some point in the past. Archaeologists have varying degrees of where Mishimati? Is that what?
Mahishmati.
Oh, okay, Mahishmati. I was trying to do it from memory there, but so having said that, I mean, there's some issues with it. It's a little bit old school in terms of the male-female relationships, and the lead character. And we can discuss this as the show goes on. I'm not sure. There's certain things that are about gods or godlike creatures. They're obviously not humans. I was wondering, sort of closer to the end, are we supposed to like this guy? Because I didn't really find him incredibly likable. But when they compared his father to his uncle, who's currently the king, there you got a little bit more of a sense that he's the good guy. He's the Ben-Hur, basically, against the Yul Brynner, who's currently ruling the kingdom. So
Okay.
yeah, no, but otherwise, like, just kind of crazy, over the top fun. Yeah.
All right, groovy. For myself, guys, I thought it's like, this is if somebody said, here's the Bible adapted into a big rock and roll epic. It's like, all right, boss, I'm going to throw in a bit of Theseus and, maybe some Shakespeare. But I did, for the most part, I really enjoyed myself. They're only a low part really is the Anthika character, where she meets Baahubali, and that whole rock video, which is very pretty and kind of what I've come to expect, but definitely for a North American sensibility, its gender politics are awful. And this isn't coming from India of 1955, it's India of 2015. So I'm like kind of, I'm judging it a little harshly there. That said, the rest of it, it is over the top, but it's appropriately over the top. It's very big and very loud, and so many hair flips. But for something like this, which is a fantasy epic, you really could see the Epic of Gilgamesh in this. You could see in the green room beforehand, Jim mentioned Hercules. I think more of like Odysseus to a degree, like these charming kings who can both rustle cattle while at the same time charm women and think through problems. Like they're super in all ways. There is very much a king, this idea of a king being, hidden, like it's Moses, king hidden in somebody destined to be a king, hidden, picked up by another royal family, but of more humble background, protected from the world so that he grows up pure and strong and all that other stuff. It is very mythical. You will see a lot of myths in it, which I always find is really cool. I find that some of these themes are actually universal, while they are very specific to India and its own mythic past. I find there's a lot of universality in it. And unlike Jim, I did find the character, notwithstanding the terrible gender politics, I found him likable, and I think they worked hard to establish that, especially when he rescues when he rescues someone. We're not in the spoiler zone yet. So yeah, guys, I guess that's where, quick review wise, that's where I'm coming from. Why don't we get into the is it worth your time? Jim, you go.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of spectacle, absolutely. I think if you're looking for something subtle and quiet, this is some HBO.
You're not even looking at this film.
Yes,
it wouldn't even come on your radar.
But it's colorful too. I mean, in a physical way, very colorful as well. So it's a real. Again, you're looking for something different in the summer. You're looking for spectacle and color. This is your movie.
Shashank.
I mean, it's an extremely vibrant movie and you won't get bored. So if you're looking for something which will keep you hooked right from the beginning till the end, I'm not sure whether you will like it or dislike it being a foreign audience, but you will never be bored and you will constantly be hooked and engaged. And I think that's the biggest compliment I can give to this film if you're a foreign audience. It's very vibrant, very colorful, and it's wonderful. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth your time.
I'm going to give it a qualified it's worth your time. I think, especially for, as you describe, a foreign audience, an outside of India audience, it's important to watch pop culture from other cultures. And I don't mean it in, I'm trying to draw a line. I don't want to sound patronizing. I just think it is important. It's important to see what other people are watching. What's fascinating is, and it was only later on that I twigged on why am I watching Hindi version? Is there any? I thought this was a Telugu film from Tollywood, and even learning about that made my world a little bigger and a little better and a lot more colorful. A part of me is like, why am I not wearing gold silk right now? Like something with some sheen. The thing I do think here's the qualified, the big asterisk is, there's and it is, I think it actually made the film less for anybody. They take that Atika character and they kind of kneecap her. And I was kind of bummed by that and that's well within you could almost say this film has 5 acts. And that's well within the first 2. I'm not just pulling this one out of my, I don't think it's too spoilery to mention it. So that's the asterisk. I thought that character and what happened with that character was unfortunate. But otherwise, still, it is, once you get over that hump, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. It's kind of, and again, it is, how did Jim put it? Like watching a rock video. Like, there's a part of me I want to say to every Canadian band right now, it's just hire, send your song to India, get them to make a video of it, let them interpret it however they want, because you're going to get something awesome, like truly awesome out of it. Actually, I kind of want to do that for us, Jim. We should just figure out some basics for our own little 2-minute entry. Oh, Shashank's back. Yeah. For our own little 2-minute entry, and just send it to Shashank. Say, here, Shashank, give us a budget. Make something amazing. Something we'd never otherwise see.
Yeah.
Say that again, Shashank.
We'll make a mountain out of a molehill. Yeah.
And Jim and I are a molehill, so we need mountain treatment. All right, guys. Now we're moving. We are moving into the in the spoiler zone. So with that out of the way, before we do that, why don't we just say hi? We do have a couple of folks in the chat, especially our man in Kuwait City, who maybe is like, oh my goodness, there's a show I can watch at a reasonable time instead of in the 20 minutes I have before I go to work. Good to see you, Jelly Duck. Let's give you a big wave. Alrighty, and we've got a couple other lurkers, but no one else has chimed in the chat, which makes it intimate for us, gents. Let's go to. So our next bit would be The Craft. Who wants to start? Who wants to start talking about the craft of the film?
I guess I can. Dig in, Jim. Sure. In terms of the performances, I mean, the leads. Again, it's through that sort of almost a rock video lens, because there's not too many quiet scenes in this. A lot of the dialogue is sort of whispered like this, and so it's kind of a different sort of movie that I'm used to. Very big and very mythic. So I think that the main cast delivers. Some of the supporting cast look almost bewildered, but you know, I have to say that I did find some of the female characters, I would like to see them a little bit more, because they were pretty kick-ass. Sivagami, I believe, is the mom, and just the way she would order things, you know, and sort of when she was in that decision-making mode, that was she appears in
performing statecraft.
Yeah, statecraft. She and if we're, I don't know, Shashank, you know, probably doesn't watch it with subtitles, so we may refer to things, or I'm guessing you don't watch it with subtitles, so we may refer to lines that appear different in Hindi or what have you. But yeah, we're given a brief glimpse of this woman at the start, and it's like, holy cow, she's kick-ass, and then you don't see her for a while. I'm not sure if we're in the spoiler zone yet or not, but
yeah, we are.
Oh, we are. Okay, so
yeah.
she appears and she's holding a baby, and after about a scene of a minute or so, she sort of turns and you see she's got an arrow. I was thinking it was directly in her spine, so I'm like, how is this woman walking? But she's got an arrow in her back and she's covered in her own blood, and she managed to waylay two guys with one knife while holding a baby.
Well, no, and remember, she takes one of them out with the arrow in her back.
Yes,
that's how she gets the sword.
Yeah. So to our little Katie scale of not little Katie, but our Katie scale of
the baby test.
The baby test. Our baby's put in jeopardy. Yeah, sorry. Kids and water don't really mix in terms of filming, but I'm sure it was a fake baby. Or anyway, but so she's immediately like, wow. And then she sort of disappears for a bit, and almost the same with Avantika.
Okay,
like
how does this relate to craft?
Sorry. Okay, so yeah, good women roles. Don't get me started. But in terms of the guys, I mean, there's a lot of, and this is all within the movie itself. There's a lot of posing. There's a lot of sort of hair flips, as Rob said. A lot of kind of like, you know, sudden turns to the camera and things like that. And it's a very stylized way of acting. So again, it's not a play, obviously.
Theatrical.
It's very sort of cinematic and
commedia dell'arte or well, when I say vaudevillian or commedia dell'arte, or more in the bigness, like yes. No one is. It's not a subtle.
Yeah,
it's all. Everything's bigger.
Yeah, and then they have to sort of, there's a lot of sort of, you have to be big for these roles, right? Big, and so that's the other thing. I was going to mention too, earlier we talked about the color of it, and there's a lot of scenes with people in sort of multicolored clothing on very sort of
so
orangey,
much saffron.
Yeah, or orangey backgrounds and that kind of thing. So, it very colorful that way. In terms of craft, some of the special effects were, they're okay. They were passable, I think. Some were better than others. The final battle against the bloodthirsty tribe was very much orcs versus Lord of the Rings heroes kind of thing, and
yeah,
that still was, even though it was kind of derivative, it was still kind of cool. I like the voices of the Kalakeli. Was that Kalakali tribe? I apologize for that, but I like their sort of. It reminded me of Us, the Jordan Peele movie, that kind of backward speaking, that thing that Lupita Nyong'o did. But so there's just a couple thoughts there. Good look to it. Lot of slow motion. I think the movie clocks in at about 2:35. I think it probably would have been a tight 110 without the slow motion, but it's stylized, right? A big stylized, crazy action movie. What did you think, Rob?
Myself, everything's in a style that I would say, and I don't mean this pejoratively, I would say it's shot in the style of a Disney musical. With these big moments, and it just more. to quote Shashank from our last collaboration, it's a cabaret. I would, but as far as the craft goes, I thought all the acting was fine. It fit. It's all what I expected. Again, calibrated to an Indian film. I'm not expecting anything other than the hair flips and all that. And although I'm only teasing, it's one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, this is what we're watching here. It's not a reserved kind of thing. And again, when I think of Lord of the Rings, when I think of some of these, what we could compare it to a certain degree in Western cinema, it's not that different. Like a little more, again, because you're adding a musical in it. I mean, you could imagine Simba shaking his mighty mane. It's the same thing as Baahubali. Ugh.
Yeah.
And heck, being a man who's, obviously no longer has the mane he once did, more power to him. That's a glorious crown of locks he has. More power to him.
Yeah.
I would, as far as the craft goes, the areas I criticize, the special or the CGI is not as good, especially in that big battle scene. There are points where I'm like, well, I can see where the money ran out because all those are little black shadows running along. They're not, it's losing its realism. And I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but like you said, Jim, it is, like I saw a number of earlier Western films in it. Again, Lord of the Rings. It's like, oh, I guess these guys are the orcs. Hope they're the orcs. Better not be black people, because that's offensive. But you can see those references, and it's tough, because you do see those references, and you go, this isn't as good as that, because it automatically, those images come to my mind. And I think that hurts a little, but only a little. Like, again, this thing was shot for 25 million USD. I was like, wow, you're getting a lot out of that 25 million. So I'd say as far as the craft goes, it's all pretty solid. All these actors' performances are calibrated to an Indian epic fantasy. I even like the way the tones changed, like how they're able to fit. And I thought that was a nice bit of craft where they were able to, you get when they're raising the big gold statue, and again, the Bible keeps coming up in my mind, eh? Every culture has its, are you worshiping God or yourself? It's Greek, and it's not even the gods have something like this. It's like, where's Nemesis? Because that's the crime of hubris. I guess it's Baahubali. There's the Nemesis. Yeah. He will strike vengeance for the gods. But there's that, the way they can change that pace and it feels real. I think that's a great example of what Indian cinema can do. And I thought, just in the way the dancers, the band changes and picks up pace and everything. And I thought that's a nice shift, and that's good filmmaking. Anyway, there's my general take on the craft. What about you, Shashank? Why don't you bring us home on this one? Here, let me give you pride of place here. You're the company.
Oh.
Should be all about you.
I think he's muted.
Oh, he is muted. Shashank, I am so sorry I've had you on mute for a bit.
Okay, yeah, can you hear me now?
Start over. Okay, we can hear you now. Start over.
Yep. I think cinema in India, as I've said it in my 3 Idiots podcast, it's designed to elicit emotion right from the 9-year-old to the 19-year-old to the 90-year-old. So, you have to make sure that everybody really feels it, because it's a communal viewing experience and everybody wants to have a great time. So you would have one scene where you're crying and you would have one scene where you're laughing. So, I think the emotions are cranked up to 100 in the movie. And if you're a Western audience, I don't think you would appreciate that as much, because Western films are a lot more subtle than Indian films. But having said that, I think it was appropriate for this film. It suited the film. The performances, I think, were appropriate for the kind of film and the kind of tale this is telling. And as far as the special effects are concerned, firstly, we don't have the budgets that Hollywood has. So it's not fair to compare really a Marvel film with Baahubali or, a Lord of the Rings scale film with Baahubali, because we have such smaller budgets. And to be honest, this is probably the top 5 best films in terms of visual effects in India. Now, we are probably, I think, easily around 30 years behind the rest of the world when it comes to special effects. But to be able to execute, the vision that Rajamouli had on the screen, I think it was phenomenal. So I think I love the visual effects, considering that it's an Indian movie. Of course, if you have to compare it with, international cinema, I don't think it would hold water. And as far as the music and the cinematography were concerned, one thing which was really good is I didn't find, generally when we have battle sequences in films, the camera is always shaky and you're not able to tell which character is moving where. So whereas in this film, everything was in frame and you were easily able to tell which character was positioned where. So, it allowed you to see the geography. Yeah. It allowed you to see the geography completely. So I
knew where you were.
Exactly. You knew where you were positioned. So I think overall, craft-wise, it's a thumbs up.
Yep. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Shashank. Like I said, it's only when it so references something that it brings it to my mind.
I understand. Yeah.
And that's the. But yeah, again, 25 million USD.
Exactly.
Great value for money.
What was Old Guard again?
Canadian. Yeah, exactly. What the.
80 million.
Yeah. Most of the audience in India. Yeah. Most of the audience in India, they don't have comparisons internationally, at least when this film released in 2015. So for us, seeing a waterfall that big or to see, kingdom that huge, this was never done before in Indian cinema, never done before. So, it's something like what Star Wars would be for you guys. It had that big of an impact, at least in terms of the special effects and the scope. Something like Close Encounters or Star Wars. Okay. It's actually sad considering that we don't have good VFX, but yeah. So I think
it's not that it's not good. It's just you can see where the money runs out.
I understand. Yeah.
You look at those first scenes. I was just trying to climb. That reminded me some of the best of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like that. And I really enjoyed that part as he was climbing up, and even, there were when the butterflies were on, Antika, her spirit, that was a little weak, but otherwise I felt that was done very well. I don't know about you, Jim. It should feel unworldly, that this idea of this almost impossible height of a waterfall. I was buying that 100%.
Yeah. I was primarily worried for the actor's safety, being a parent. But I'm like, kids, get down from there. But I'm like a mom. Oh, sorry. I wrote down a line. What was it? Sage, if I do this, will my son listen to me? It was when she was pouring the water on the lingam there. I have to say, Shashank, in terms of the VFX, that's a little qualifier. I would put it on par. We reviewed the Tomorrow War a few weeks ago. Probably thereabouts, equal to that, even a Hollywood movie, and it didn't take.
They had 200 million.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they got good value for their money, and it didn't take me out of it at any point.
I want to first, Vlad65, Walt, another great friend of the show, appreciates the context you're giving, and I think we should just give a bit of a wave. In the same time zone as Jim, and
here's a pro tip. If you're in the same time zone as Vlad65, you might get a sneak preview on Vlad's own TV of his latest YouTube video. So,
Oh, very cool. Give us a little teaser,
this was
little
last
hint
week.
of quality. Oh, okay.
It was the one on
right.
Thursday. So I saw Walt on Thursday, and yeah, got a
Before it launched.
not to brag, but I got a sneak preview. So
Very cool, man. All right. Anything else we want to add to Craft, or before we move on? Remember, our new goal is to come in at 2 hours.
yes. Yeah, in terms of the music, it was lots of different genres. I think I heard a lot of not what I would say would be typical Indian music, but like a lot of modern instruments and stuff. And occasionally it did get into the older sounding stuff, but what I associate with Indian culture. So that was kind of neat. But it did seem like it was trying different things with different songs. Like they all had different kind of styles a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where I appreciate the subtitles. And that's where I thought, wow, these songs are on point.
Yes.
Like they are advanced. Yeah. They're expository to a degree.
Oh.
And this is where I think of Walt Disney cartoon musicals, animated musicals. I thought that's kind of where they were going.
There's a couple lines I wrote down here. Even if the mountains will stop me, I will blow it to pieces in no time. And there was one sort of chorus that was about the lead character himself. His anger will cause new fears in his foes. I mean, it's going to come across differently in Hindi or what have you. But there's some kind of like when you're following the songs with the subtitles, it was like, oh, okay. That's a good way to deliver information.
Yep. It was cool. Like, I mean, the only bummer, and I may actually rewatch it because I did find on Netflix it does have a Tamil. Like, I mean, I'm not sure though, because correct me if I'm wrong. The film was shot, or was the film shot in is it Telugu?
Yeah, it's Telugu as well as in Tamil. It was simultaneously shot in Telugu as well as Tamil.
So you can watch it in Telugu, you can watch it in Tamil, and then of course they did a Hindi dub later.
Yeah.
So I think I rewatch it in Tamil because at times you could tell it's a dub, even though I'm reading the subtitles. And I love to get the original actor's tone.
Voices,
although, did they? Again, the credits, I was not sure. I didn't do that close a look at it. I was more looking for the union thing. Did they dub it with the same actors? Because from what I look, all these actors, like, I mean, although they concentrate, a lot of them are mostly in Tollywood. That's not like they've never done a Hindi film.
Yeah.
Did they use the same actors to do the Hindi dub?
Not everybody. I think the lead character of Prabhas, he was dubbed by somebody else. I think Sharat Kelkar, who's a Marathi actor. But I think Nassar's character was dubbed by himself. I think even I need to check it, but most of the characters were dubbed by other artists.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, because I'm not expecting, because I don't know them, I'm not going, oh, this is really getting out of my head. But I would still like to see more sync. And yeah, you know what? How do you capture the full performance if you're not hearing their tone? Not that it was, I don't know about you, Jim, but I'd rate the dub pretty solid. I did not.
Yeah,
it's not like some of the crappy dubs we've seen where we're like, okay, that was recorded in someone's car.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of, you look at the old Godzilla movies that are horribly dubbed, or even like Let the Right One In. If
the
you watch
Ashland.
Yeah.
Like that awful dub.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I get it though.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought up music, Jim. That was that was a great call. I do not regret my saying. Does anyone have anything else to say?
Yes.
We can now, though, move forward with some confidence. Let's talk about the story. Shashank, you want to lead us off here?
Yep, sure. I think this movie is a derivative of the ancient Indian epics, which is Ramayana and Mahabharata. It's not exactly a takeoff from those two epics, but it's a lot of, it takes a lot of inspiration from these two epics. So, I mean, it's really intriguing that, a guy finds a mask falling off a waterfall, and then he goes on this big epic journey and finds his cause. The greatest thing, the thing I like the most about this story is you're following a person who's finding a cause. He's always restless. Right from the first frame of the film, he's constantly restless. And once he climbs up the waterfall, he finally finds his cause. So I think the entire story, if I have to sum it up, is about people finding their cause. And if you follow characters who are lost and somehow find their purpose as they go along the film, I think they become very easy to root forward to. So I think the story was great. And once again, I think the story is pretty universal. I don't think it's necessary that you need to be an Indian only to enjoy the story. I think it's something which is universal and something which would be enjoyed all across the world. It's a pretty timeless story.
The only thing I'd tweak on your take on it, Shashank, is like this really does follow a certain kind of format. And I don't mean that in it's a Hollywood formula or something. I mean a very deep kind of mythic format. The chosen one is whisked to a safe place. And there's either your Harry Potter and the foster parents are so horrible, they're the training, or the foster parents are so wonderful and it's the environment that's the training. He's almost like Superman being dropped in Kansas, in this, idyllic, protected, like.
Oh, I think we lost Rob.
Whoa,
there he's coming.
Whoa, we all just kind of blanked out for a second there. That idea of a hidden path. And I looked at that. Yes, he's restless because there's a part of him drawing him to where he needs to be.
Yeah.
But the wisdom of the gods are such that they lead him to this place, and that he needs to train himself, and that the waterfall is the training. And it isn't until he's at that point where he's this close that he gets that little bit of a help with that call to adventure that, now I have. Before he had kind of a vague sort of, why am I climbing it? Because it's there. It's with the mask, and somehow it's a bit, it's actually a pretty woman, and nice switch from his stick scrawling to, something remarkable. But he's called further. He now has a reason. The spirit of Antika, or perhaps the gods, because gods do that, it's like, he just now needs to be drawn further. Now we can show him the path. He is worthy of the trials that are coming forward. But this is that first big test. This is the first big, threshold he has to pass. The threshold guardian is the threshold, the physical trials, also the intelligence, the daring, the bravery he has to show to see if he's worthy of everything else he's got to go through. And again, because I really love these mythic stories, how they relate to other folk tales, and that I was totally into it. It's not even a suspension of disbelief. It's more of you're in a mythical world, and I don't mean in a nasty way. We should all visit the mythical world every now and then. It's good for our souls. So yeah, I think that would, the only thing I would add is I think there's actually something even deeper here going on. In a human culture way. In a human mythic culture way. What about you, Jim?
Yeah, it's funny. Just as you're mentioning that, one of the neatest little scenes. It's very brief, but one of the scenes I like in the movie is when our hero is climbing the waterfall, and they sort of cut to, and they don't do this a lot during the movie, but it's probably one of the quietest little 30 seconds in the movie, and they cut to a bunch of his buddies on the ground looking up and saying, yeah, this is like his 100th time trying that, and yeah, and he's totally fallen 100 times. Let's see how he does now. And they're just sort of like, they're just looking up and saying, okay, let's go, come on. And that's kind of a neat little moment there. But yeah, it's funny. I watched, they had a big celebration of Satyajit Ray on TCM, on Turner Classic Movies, on his 100th birthday. He passed away a number of years ago, but it would have been his 100th birthday earlier in July, I guess. And I take this quiet little movie called Coward. That's about a 70-minute, it's a three-hander, almost like a play, and very quiet. And even there, they actually mention language and different cinemas of different language within the story. You know, maybe one day we'll get to Calcutta so we can go see some. Yeah, we go see some movies there in March. But what sort of impresses me too in these Indian epics is that, and I've seen this a little bit, and I saw this a little bit when I was there a million years ago, is that they try to cover almost every area of the country. Like there's mountains and there's plains and there's snowy. You know, we tend to forget, you know, Canada's not the only snowy country in the world, but they show, they deliberately set it in the snow. And that's kind of, they're trying to, I guess, encompass the whole subcontinent to some extent. But yeah, in terms of the story, the mythic aspect of it was good. I sort of, they're forever in superhero movies talking about the relationship between the bad guy and the good guy, for lack of a better term. And I think it really started to, like, the third act is essentially a flashback between the two brothers. And it's when you contrast the two guys against one another that our hero becomes a little more likable. There's a rock band in Canada called the Tragically Hip, and there's a line that in one of their songs that says, "There's nothing uglier than a man hitting his stride." And there's a little bit of toxic masculinity in this. There's a little bit of overconfidence, I think, in the main character.
Just a little.
A little. But when you see it in the past, in the flashback, and you can contrast the one brother against the other brother, then that gives you, I think, a better sense. I almost wish they brought that forward earlier, but it's sort of the hook on which the movie ends, leading into the next movie. So, but structurally, I wanted that a little bit earlier to bring our own current day main character into focus. So yeah, you really need that foil, right? You really need that antagonist and the protagonist, and that's when I think it really sort of, okay, everything's coming into line now. I can see where this is going.
What did you guys? I'm kind of curious what you both thought of. And I relate this to The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2. Would it have, like, it is interesting. I really am, like, at the end of this movie, I'm like, well, this isn't resolving anything for me. It's screw it. I'm going to start the next one just because. And I was thinking to our audiences going, really should have said, just watch Part 1 and Part 2. We're going to do we'll just do both parts at once. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if they could have done it in a more, hey, here is Part 1. It is a satisfying Part 1. And then a Part 2 that is kind of like either The Godfather. Oh, excuse me, terrible belch. Either like The Godfather Part 2, where it's all of a sudden then you're contrasting times, but all the way through the movie, so that you see progression in both your A and B plot. Let's say. What do you guys think? Or is this the only way you could have done it?
You know, actually, Rajamouli envisioned it as one single movie. The entire Part 1 and Part 2 is actually one movie. but because of the time constraints, he decided to divide it into. Look, I think the structure is
It's a 6-hour movie is a long time.
It's like a cricket match.
True, exactly.
Don't mind me. I'm just gonna finish my breakfast sandwich.
Yep. I think structurally, I think I had a problem with the structure of the film, because if you look at the second part, it's actually a prequel. Like, it's around maybe 2.5 hours, and I think 2 hours is just the backstory, relating to Amrendra Bahubali and the kingdom. So I think definitely the structures is one of the problems which I had, because in the first hour of the film, you're rooting for this character Shiva, and then suddenly it slips to a flashback, and that's the flashback and that's the end. But I think we're in the spoiler zone, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
So the point at which the film ends. So if this came out in 2015, right? You're so excited. Exactly. You're so excited for part 2. So I think from a marketing standpoint, that was the best way to end the film, because literally that was the talk of the town for the next 2 years. Why did Kattappa kill Bahubali? So I think from a marketing standpoint, that was the best way to end it. Although I generally prefer, resolution and conclusion. Cliffhanger is the best way to get you hooked on. It's almost like a TV episode where you just want to play the next thing.
Yeah. Wait, now you're absolutely right, Shashank. Unlike Infinity War Endgame, which was the lamest, no stakes bullshit ending. Endgame or Infinity War was such a horseshit ending. These people are coming back. There was no consequences. There was no, it's like, really? Okay, end it on Gamora's death. Or like something of real consequence. Whereas you're absolutely right. It's like, well, I did not. First of all, I honestly, as I was watching, I'm like, oh, okay, I know how this is good. Well, we know didn't know who was killing him. Not at all. How? Why? So you're absolutely right. It ends on a high stakes moment, and it ends you wanting to know more. And yes, so I agree with that. Jim, did you want to chime in on this?
Yeah. I was actually just listening to you and forgot my point. Well, yeah, I mean, it's well done in that way, is that you're like, huh, and what happens next? Another thing I was going to ask or mention about the way it unfolded, it's a little Shivu heavy at the first half an hour or so. So when Kattappa did come in, it was nice, because you knew it was going to be a larger story with more characters as well, and there were other competent people, other good, strong warriors well too. So that was interesting. The sword, when he fought with the sword dealer, the guy from Kabul, I guess, that I sort of wonder, is that going to come up in the second one, or
it's got to,
or was that just
friend? You can count on me.
Yeah, if you ever need anything, yeah.
Okay, I will say, let's invoke a spoiler. You know what? Don't ask any questions. Just say, I wonder if this will pay off, because we're really, I can attest to you folks. I've started watching the second one. I have not seen this Kabul arms dealer.
Yeah, but I
have not seen the Kabul arms dealer come up. But yeah, that's a Chekhov's gun if there ever was. They'll be pulling that trigger eventually.
Oh,
I'm sure of it.
And
if not, then we can bitch about it when we do Bahubali, the conclusion.
What about the fireworks factory? But and then Avantika too. I sort of wonder if she's going to be brought back in the second one with any of the skills that she showed in the first. Yeah. But
it would be nice to kind of recover from the I've been turned into a woman by the unrelenting, I don't know what no means. Personal space. I'm literally gonna draw it.
It's sort of the equivalent. Like, so you're watching it, and she's sort of dressed down. She's a little bit of a thief, warrior, not thief, but sort of a warrior character. A little bit of she's got skills, right? Climbing trees, inserting herself into places, and that sort of thing. And she's sort of dressed down. And when he sort of beautifies her, it's a little bit of the librarian taking off her glasses moment. It's like, wait, she's beautiful.
Oh, and her skin lightens, and
a little bit.
All these other tropes, like.
But I thought she was gorgeous to begin with. Like, it's just like. Anyway, but
I think we're also getting into cultural things where it's like, what's actually, because you see that in China as well. Iran, like, I mean, the woman gets fairer. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not saying white, because that I don't think is what's going on there. But Shashank, why don't you weigh in on that? Although, actually, you know what? If you can hold on that until we get into the meaning,
sure,
because I do think, and we've got a couple of comments from Walt that I'd like to bring up.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, he says, you know, when Shashank described the effects in their cultural budget context, it reminded me of the everyday people watching big effects stage operas in Amadeus. Interesting note. Always thinking of older films, a suggestion to Shashank, you may want to try watching the 1963 Jason and the Argonauts, which is Greek myth, and stop motion special effects. Best of that style. I think the 70s Clash of the Titans was probably that's Ray
Harryhausen.
Ray Harryhausen. Yeah.
A lot of the skeleton army kind of stuff.
Oh, that was, I still remember I can viscerally remember first seeing that. It would have been 10 or something.
Yeah. And being scared of it. Like,
Still, what?
Medusa.
Even, I think by then they'd really gotten into, okay, there's going to be a weird look to this. How can we exploit it? How can we're not getting a natural motion blur. So how do we use that to our advantage? And I think they really did that well in that film. Wanted to bring that up. Anything else you want to add to the story? Because I think we're tripping into meaning now.
Yeah.
But anyone want to add something to the story before we move on to meaning?
I think. Well, actually, this is. Yeah, that's more about meaning. Actually, sorry. Looking at my notes, but that's. This is a line I liked. Yeah. If any one of you object, I will trample upon your necks. I think I'm going to have that as on my business card.
I like the you can object. I mean, there are consequences.
Crush.
Great character. Well, actually, you know what? Before we go on, I do have a question for you guys. I think we got time. What were some of your favorite character development moments or character revealing moments? I still mentioned it in Craft, but it really is kind of a great story moment. Shivagami, how did we pronounce the...
It's correct.
Okay, yeah. Shivagami, her character, she had, and again, it's the... That's the guy. It's... Yeah. You betrayed me. It's statecraft. It's like, oh, that's what statecraft is. But there is, all of a sudden, you see a revealing moment that shows, of course, this is the woman who can gut a guy with the arrow that was not 2 seconds ago in her back and hold the baby above the water and then even point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like it's a great moment, but you don't know this character.
Yeah.
And then to have her revealed, it's one of the reasons why it's an asterisk for me on the recommend, not a outright, because notwithstanding what they do to Antika in the story, the mother is a fully developed, fully revealed, kind of awesome character. And it also kind of, to me, there's this, it's even when later on in the film where it's, oh my goodness, it's like Indian moms love their mama's boys. And there's Baahubali the elder, as she pets him and still running the show.
Yeah.
It's like, it's this perfect example of a matriarchy, right? Like, and I thought the way that character was revealed to us was actually really cool. Like, sorry, I keep spitting all over the place here. I'm excited. But I thought that was fascinating, the way that character was revealed. Did you guys have any other moments like for other characters like that, or?
Well, just quickly for Shivagami, I think the main thing is that you absolutely believe her authority, right? That she would just look at somebody and I bought in. Some actors you know that they're running their lines or whatever, they do an okay job, but some of them truly inhabit their characters, and for her, I did not question her authority, didn't question her power, her ability to do anything. It's not like, this actress doesn't know how to hold a knife. No, she was like, I was all in with her. The thing that I thought was interesting was with the Avantika character is that she, when she's battling whatever group of scoundrels that they came up against while Shivu was watching, from the woods, is that she's just openly killing bad guys. And I'm not saying that as a criticism, but in North American movies, there's this sort of false morality where Spider-Man can't kill the robber that killed Uncle Ben. It has to be an accident, right? If Spider-Man did that, then he couldn't be the innocent Peter Parker anymore. There's so much psychology built into that, is that the prisoner that wants to break out of prison is in there for crimes he didn't commit. He can't be a murderer and escape and still have the audience help him out. So in this way, it sort of lacks that BS North American mentality, is that, the woman can kill bad guys and you can still root for her and openly kill him. Like, I think she goes up behind one guy, slices his neck, and that's not held against her.
After paying off the bad guy's guards.
Yes.
You bribed my people. Yes. That's statecraft.
Yeah.
And all the viziers, the ministers are impressed by this. Like, oh yeah, we can follow her.
Yeah.
She's the regent for us.
So that was refreshing, that they sort of took that filter of false morality.
Okay, we're in the meaning then. This is got nothing to do with story. Let's just jump there.
I mean, it still had to do with that. Well, it's not so much turn, but it's how I perceive the character, I guess.
Yeah. What's the point of this movie?
Oh.
Jump in, gents. Pick one of you. Jim,
I yield to Shashank.
Spotlight's on you, brother.
What does it mean? It's a hero journey, so it's as Shashank said earlier, it's finding your route, finding your way, and discovering who you are. It's such a big movie. It's hard for me to pin down an individual meaning, I think, other than I think there's some aspect of goodness, the way that they describe it when they compare the two brothers, how one of them at the end decides to save the villagers that are basically held as a human shield, and the other one sacrifices him. I think that's sort of a big point. It's that divide between they even say it in the movie, a divide between a warrior and a leader. Was that what it was?
Yep.
That's how you distinguish it. And I think, it's the question of heart. If you're strong enough to be able to, if you save one life, you're a god. I think one of the characters says, if you just take life, then you're a warrior. And that's sort of that's obviously an important aspect of the movie.
Yeah. I'd even go further. It really is an exploration. Like so many of these films that are really about a royal who has been usurped.
Yep.
And how to set the world right again is to put the rightful heir in their proper place. Then society can operate. Otherwise, and what you see with the usurper is it's all become about him and his glory and his glorification. And to go deeper, I think it really does. It's an examination of what makes a good king versus a terrible king. And I do like the way they show that at times. I don't agree with it politically. It's awful. That said, judging it just on its own terms, on the film's terms, it's done really well. Even right to like Baahubali, when he's gone to rescue Devasena. Devasena.
Yeah.
Going to rest Devasena, doesn't even know it's just that his wife now, Antika, you're mine, and therefore your work is mine.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of both a disturbing and an awesome moment.
Yeah.
Your obligations are mine.
Yep.
It is. It's one of those I like and hate this moment. But it delivers.
Yeah.
Like it delivers. You're talking about that emotional punch. But you see that theme revealed in a character revealing moment when the thing's about to collapse and there is the world's shittiest uncle going, some heads have to roll for greatness and it's going to crush. And so he jumps in to help out. Because that's what a good king does, is not sacrifice. And that's the moment, going back to what you were saying earlier, Jim, where we like him. And even his charm, and he reaches down to help a slave up, because this is, a good king is above all these peasants, but can be amongst these peasants, and again, like an Odyssean king, like... Odysseus was noted as he could still be good at animal husbandry, even though he's a king, right? There's a more hands-on approach to this guy. And then, of course, with his insane strength, he single-handedly saves. Everyone kind of gets into it. But this is another moment of showing. And then, the whole basically last third of the film, second and third act, or let's say in a 5-act, it's like the fourth and fifth act are all about why Baahubali is the obvious choice as king. You know, the scorpion moment, the willing to eat with the slaves moment, I'm assuming, Shashank, to call someone uncle in that way is just a great sign of respect for an elder, a wiser elder. You know, which even now I get a little misty over, when he's calling him uncle. But that first moment, and everyone's like, well, you can eat with us. And that it is a huge honor to them, but also to him that they're like, okay, you can eat with us, which is a weird kind of flipping of the script. Pardon?
Yeah. You're humanizing the person when you call him an uncle because he's a slave, right?
Yeah. But also that humanizing him and respect, like I think a respect that goes beyond acknowledging his humanity,
True.
So I really enjoyed that moment, but I also I think it again leads to the theme of what makes a good king, not necessarily just a good leader, but a good king, because this is all about birthright and kind of a genetic predisposition for greatness or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the feed me uncle, I think, is the line that was in the subtitles. And then Katapa gets all kind of misty himself, and
all the other warrior slaves kind of react to that moment, like in only how an Indian film could do it.
Yeah. The Katapa character is kind of interesting because he's like the emotional kind of guide, right? They always cut to him when and he gets kind of like teary-eyed a number of times over the course of the film,
and more restrained actually than you necessarily.
Much more.
He rarely does the
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's I really enjoy that, and the hair flip.
And
It's
that's
almost like Loki-esque hair flips.
yes, yeah, or Black Widow. But you have to think too that that's the chops you get when you make 200 movies, which this actor apparently is the
Prabhas?
the gentleman who played
Sathyaraj.
Katapa.
yeah.
Who is he again? Is that, I want to say that's
It's a
not
one name Sid.
Satyaraj.
Sathyaraj.
Yeah.
Jim, we got to do more of these so we can practice our Indian pronunciation. Strictly for that, to get these
We'll just
names
do it
right.
in another language next time.
What about you? What do you had mentioned earlier, Shashank, this idea of, I would almost describe it as finding your calling. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
that they're lost. They haven't found the right place.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the entire film is about the fact that you're born in this world to do a duty and you need to fulfill it irrespective of any prejudice or any bias that you may have. So, for example, the slave, he's clearly in opposition to the fact that Balal Dev has enslaved Devsena, but he needs to still, he still needs to be in service of the king. So the idea is you are born with a duty and you need to fulfill that duty to the best way you can. And that scene which you mentioned where Bahubali tells Avantika that your responsibilities are my responsibilities now. So technically, I think the entire movie is about people doing the duties to the best of their abilities. So you're born in the world, you have a duty, and you need to achieve that duty. You need to fulfill that responsibility to the best way you can. And I think each and every character does that in the movie, whether they be good or whether they be bad. That's very clear in the movie. But they have a duty, they have a calling, and they have to pursue it fully. I think that's what the movie's about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can
There's
buy that. I can see that a bit.
There's
Go ahead, Jim.
there's an interesting couple of aspects about this movie that I noticed. It sort of reminded me. There's a Kurosawa movie called High and Low, I believe, and the head of it's modern day. It's not an ancient one, but the head of a company. I think their child gets kidnapped. It's been a few years. I'm just sort of calling this out of the blue.
Oh,
gets kidnapped.
I have an idea. Yeah.
And so the police, they do an investigation and they get all the employees together and they say, we want to know if this is an inside job. And they say, no, it's not. We're all behind our boss. Yes, we all must fight together to find the child. And so there's a little bit of, in a couple instances, and again, this is not typical for North American theater, which is usually about the self, right? It's about the individual in a lot of times. But with the Avantika, it's almost a cult that she belongs. I'm not saying it's a cult, but it's sort of there's almost like a religious sect in that she's almost kicked off a mission when the leader sees a tattoo on her body, right? That she didn't put there. He said, you're more interested in your beauty than the mission, so get out of here. And there's that sort of like, oh, no, I pledge myself to the mission. And I don't necessarily think you'd see that in a North American movie. And the other one, too, is the Katapa, his motivation to, even though the people who pledged their loyalty to this king, this bad king, have long since died, it was still a pledge, and he's got to uphold it to some extent. I imagine that'll be broken at some point, but that's an interesting psychology because, again, you don't often see that in the cinema that we watch a lot of.
Well, but I do think we do see that in Shakespeare, in older, like right now. That does not fit our idea of the order of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not celebrated in a cinema that really celebrates individualism. But it is it's trying to make this case that you fulfill your role in society, regardless of how ridiculously unfair it might be. You know, going back to that moment in Katapa and Kabul, it's like, yes, but I must follow through on that commitment that was made generations before, which I think you see now that I'm finally starting to watch Kurosawa. Kurosawa is a big fan of that. In the way it's like, these are the roles we have, and society doesn't work if you are not meeting your obligations. Going back to the duty. There we go. I'm pointing in the right direction now. The duty that Shashank is referring to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That you must do your duty for society to work. And it's that weird sort of gender. I think a gender conflict that might be going on in Indian society now, that they like their badass female characters. Like, I mean, Mom is just fucking ruthless in the best way possible. But even, Devasena. Devasena's character, we learn is first act. She's obviously a badass as well.
Yeah,
kind of maybe hinting into the first act of the second film. So I'm trying to restrain myself. But even what we see of her in it, it's like, my son will come and he will burn. He will burn the bad guy on this pyre, because that is what I am making. That's like it. So, and Antika is a badass character. It's this. I do think that there's, and it may be reflecting cultural change that is going on in India right now. There is a women's rights movement. There is, there are Indian feminists, a lot of them, probably more than there are Canadians entire. Maybe many times more than there are Canadians. So it's you know what? There's an interesting tension, even in where it's this idea of, and I was thinking of Gwyndyre's War. There's a moment where in Gwyndyre's War, he acknowledges every society that needs all hands on deck has no problem putting women in combat roles. And he used the Nicaraguan revolution, the Sandinista revolution against Somoza. Or, no, it was Somoza. I know it's not a samosa like I'm eating, but
yeah.
Wasn't that that bastard?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel? Is that his first name?
No, Daniel Ortega was the leader of the Sandinistas at the time. Anyway, lots of women as part of these rebel, that's just something that is seen. Mm-hmm. The second society calms down a bit, it's like, okay, got to get back into your role. And I think that that's what reminded me of Antika. It's like, okay, here's the society that's been kind of nuked. You've got some people loyal to the old queen, or the rightful heir and the rightful queen. And that's Antika's role. And where Baahubali, as a rightful king, needs a princess now. And princesses aren't, they're all smelly out in the woods, doing guerrilla warfare. But again, there's that tension, right?
Yeah.
Let's find out you behind the mask of all this, badassery, which is, again, I do think unfortunate, but it is an interesting thing to look at in Indian film.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
True.
I like the way it's and silence.
No, I mean, just there's so much going on here, right? It's just like there's echoes from other sort of mythologies, echoes from other sort of movies and tales, and all kinds of stuff. Like, I saw Ben-Hur in this. They even have a chariot.
Yeah.
There's a number
even
of other
to that
things.
Ridiculous device in front of it.
Yeah.
Kind of evokes Ben-Hur in the the asshole with the cheating, the cheater bar.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on here, a lot to unpack, and for me, I think I'm gonna have to obviously watch the second one. I'm already in.
First thing I'm doing right after this is all right. Let's get that back on the air. Oh yeah. It is that engrossing. But I'm wondering. You had mentioned earlier, I think this is important. What I love about these films, that on the surface could be written off as Jim said, an entertainment. Oh, it's just a fantasy. It's like, no, there's something deeper going on. And although the characters may be simplistic if you're comparing it to some social critique from India in the 50s. And I'm thinking now of Three Idiots and the way they had fun with that. Going back to one of the guys' relatives, and it's always shot in black and white. And just horrible things happening to them. God, that was a great movie. That was a truly awesome film. I'm curious, Shashank, what are, like, if we wanted to go deeper into the specific myths and legends and, narratives of this, you had mentioned a couple, and I'd love to type them up now. Can you give me that? Like, I mean, what was one of the legends you'd referred to?
Ramayana.
So
Want me to spell it out for you? Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Ramayana.
Okay, so that's, and I'm going to put this up here so folks you can search Ramayana.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Ramayana.
then what's the other one?
Mahabharat. So MAHABHA.
Yep.
RAT.
Okay. And because I want to Google this up and kind of familiarize myself with this to kind of put the first film in better context and the one I'm currently watching in better context.
Yeah.
Do I got the spelling right there?
Yeah.
And that's Mahabharat.
Mahabharat. Yeah.
Mahabharat.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Was there anything here that, as far as the meaning goes, an Indian would get, but Jim and I are missing? That you can explain to Jim and I.
Yeah. There were certain things. I noticed one thing was the sort of towards the end of the movie, there was the foot on the head. So they transpose a shot of the grown character with the foot on the slave's head. Katapa. There. And then they sort of flashed back and showed the baby doing the same thing. So I'm thinking, is that like a type of baptism?
No. That's not.
Okay.
No. That's not.
I thought it's something.
I think
like
mainly,
a status deal. Like, hey,
No.
I am in service to you.
No. I don't think so. It's not.
Okay.
It's not. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that. Well, I think generally, if you're an American audience, I don't think you would have missed much, except the fact that this movie has it pays homage to the Indian epics in certain ways. So, Mahabharat, there is a war between the good side, which is the Pandavas, and the bad side, which is the Kauravas, and they are cousin brothers. So, in a similar way, in this film, Baahubali and Bhalal Dev, they are cousin brothers in a certain sense, and there is a rivalry which happens between them, which you will see in the second film. So, I think mainly there are just callbacks to Indian epics, but there is nothing which I think an American audience would have missed. I think it's pretty clear. So there are just callbacks to Indian epics.
Yeah.
Nothing specific.
I think there's subtleties in a lot of things that we do miss. Like when Rob and I watch English films, I'm sure there's references to class and things that may go over our heads. There was one line that I wrote down specifically was the empty throne reminds me of a widow's forehead, and there's little that's before that Shivagami sort of sits down on it, but there's
well,
a
puts
couple
everyone
things
in their place and then goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Does it still remind you of a widow's forehead? Yeah.
Show you my widow's forehead. Look there and see your doom.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a few little bits, but I mean, you'd have to sort of go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and but I'm sure it's like that with a lot of different cultures. There's probably
I was
American
more
movies
looking for those big things, like have we missed a big, like oh wow, that changes the whole film for us.
Not really.
But it sounds like about the head.
I think it's pretty simplistic.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else we want to add, guys, before we talk about our next film? Which reminds me, I have to upload that thing. I still haven't taken care of that. It's happening. But is there anything else you guys want to add before we?
Was there? In terms of the songs just being they were mostly exposition, moving the story along or explaining something. Was there anything that, like, I was sort of curious, do these songs, are they part of a soundtrack? Do you hear them on the radio? Does it get another life that way in India?
Yeah. The songs are one of the major ways, they are one of the major marketing tools used by the production companies. So you get to see them playing in television channels. And so that's one of the major ways people actually come into a cinema theater just to view the songs. If the songs are good, you're going to spend about $200 and watch the film. So that's a very major marketing tool used by the production houses. And so they're played in all over, on radio and television, everywhere. And if it's and the songs are generally even before the trailer in certain cases.
Oh yeah.
Well,
okay.
I could imagine like any of those sequences are like there are already a. Okay, Jim, I'm thinking of Men in Black, especially the first one, where Will Smith. It was part of the marketing effort was the music video to Men in Black, and the song and everything. But here you could literally just you're not giving anything away by literally just taking the set pieces for a couple of key songs and releasing them as music videos. And it gives you a tone and an emotion, which is what a trailer should do. It should not tell you what to expect story-wise, but what to expect emotion-wise. And I think there's a couple of great moments there. I'm thinking when they're still kind of brothers and they were early looking for the traitor and they end up in that sleazy town and go, okay.
That tied up with rope.
Yeah, but at the same time, and I don't know if you noticed this, Jim, and I'm kind of curious on your take on it, Shashank. Oh, not final thoughts. Sorry, I wanted the meaning. What I did notice, and what makes it, I mean, it is very. It's a masculinity that I think the West is moving out of in fits and starts and everything, but we are moving out of it. But what I will say is one thing that for me takes a bit of the edge off the masculinity, the simplistic, toxic masculinity in so many Western films is here there is a sensuality, heck shit. Obviously part of being a true man in at least this mythic world is also loving your mom, like in a way that we would not see in a Western masculine, like toxic masculine, almost oh, well, sure, you got to love your mom, but not in the way Baahubali loves,
Shivagami.
Thank you. Shivagami. The way he loves her and the way they connect in a very loving way. It's just, we wouldn't see that. Like there's even in that, what's otherwise, it's like, oh, this could be in any North American rock kind of stripper sort of scene, except there's a sensuality to it that it's not that, I don't feel like I'm watching porn, I guess is maybe the way I would describe it. What do you think about that, Jim?
You mean the relationship between Baahubali and his mom?
Well, both his mom, but I'm even thinking in the crime-infested town as they're trying to chase down that trader, right?
Yeah.
And there's that moment with those three women, almost like a snake charmer thing. Even there, it's not lascivious. Like there is a sensuality to this character that you don't see, a smoothness, a gentleness, let's say. It doesn't, again, I don't feel like I'm watching porn. The way he treats his mother, there's that great scene where he's lying on his mother's lap. She's, tussling his hair. It's very, it does not take away from his manhood in any way. It's comical. I mean, maybe comical, a little comical. There's a little bit of humor in the moment for me as a Westerner, but I still understand it's like, apparently, in Indian, if you're going to be a true Indian man, you got to be a true Indian mama's boy as well.
Yeah. I think it's just a difference in cultures. Over here, we are very, very close to the family. And there is a display of physical affection, which happens between members of the family. So I think, nobody would blink an eyelid if you saw a scene like that in an Indian movie, if you're an Indian. So I think it's just a difference in cultural sensibilities. We are a lot more expressive and a lot more close. So we do show physical affection between family members as well.
What did you think, Jim? As far as that, like I said, it takes a lot of the edge of what I would otherwise say is a pretty toxic, like a very capital M masculine man.
Yeah.
And this is not to take anything away from my critique of the Antika scene earlier in the second act.
Yeah, I mean, some of the references that I wrote down and some of the actors, references, Ben-Hur, of course, Popeye a little bit, and some of the actors, Tom Cruise, Burt Reynolds, Charlton Heston, it got a little bit of a Burt Reynolds vibe, big mustache and dark hair and that kind of thing. But yeah, there is, in that first... Is it the first musical number? I'm thinking when he takes the lingam and he sort of rips it out of the ground, and then he puts it on his shoulder, and then he walks it to the waterfall.
Can't bring the mountain to Muhammad. Muhammad will, or the lingam will go to the mountain.
Going through those loopholes, so the mom didn't have to pour 101 more buckets of water. And then he sort of does like punches the air, and then the little dance, which is ridiculous and sort of over the top. But then it's not I don't think they sing during that one. But he dances.
Yeah.
He does a little shimmy under the wall, with a few hair flips and things like that. And that's kind of interesting because you wouldn't see that, and it's very much a moment of vulnerability. This is an actor, Prabhas, who does Bollywood movies, I'm led to believe. So, he's clearly got experience. But again, you wouldn't see Tom Cruise ever, dancing.
But it is biblical. King David did dance.
Yeah.
Like it refers to his dancing before God on a regular basis. And the mountain is God for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
I do want to, let's quickly welcome a new person to our show, I think. and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, or Shashank, you will correct me, but I want to try first. Shruti Vchari? Cherry?
Yeah, Chari, yeah.
Cherry. Shruti Vchari, welcome to Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies with our special guest, Shashank Vchari. Good to see you. And, of course, we appreciate that you think our perspectives are interesting. So you're doubly welcome.
Good taste.
All right, guys. I think we're coming on a 10 minutes to close mark. But I did want to. I'm glad we did kind of bring that up. Why don't we now? I think it's time, Jim, for you to tell us what we're going to be watching next week. So once you get that going.
Well, very appropriate for summer. We're Does It Hold Up? We're looking at an old classic, National Lampoon's Vacation. Bingo. With an awesome movie poster. I forgot about that movie poster. But that's a real Frank Frazetta drop. With a almost, actually, that's almost a Baahubali kind of look. A little bit. You could argue, I think.
Yeah, it's got a bit of that vibe, eh?
Yeah.
But I like the Frank. I like the Frank Frazetta reference.
Yeah,
exactly. It's got more of a heavy metal, the magazine vibe.
Yeah, there's a couple things going on there, but
yeah, that's quite and some old 50s film, Attack of the 50 or Attack of some foreign or space element thing. Okay, so that's what's happening next week, folks. We will be back at our regular time, 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. That would be 7:30 Pacific Daylight Time, or 10:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And, of course, for poor Shashank, that's like 8 o'clock in the morning. But you're on holiday right now. We expect to see you next week, Shashank.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll be there.
You're on vacation.
Yeah, exactly. See, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're in the end game now. We gotta be quick-ish. First of all, does Mr. Rajamouli does he pass or fail? Shashank?
Absolute pass. I mean, definitely. No Indian film has been executed. A film of this scale, a story of this scale, it has never been executed in Indian cinema before. So 100%, yeah, it's a pass.
Jim?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want the whole article that got us to watch this movie in the first place, or brought it to our attention anyways, is by a gentleman by the name of Barry Hertz in Globe and Mail. He's saying there are so many places for newbies, that's newbies to Indian cinema of this kind. There are so many places to start. The Doom films, the Baghi franchise, Siddhartha Anand's War. But my first stop would be Rajamouli's Baahubali. And he rates it at the end as, he says, plausibility scale, 100% ridiculous. In a good way. Like he's just saying this is so over the top, so crazy. So in that sense, yeah, if you're in terms of spectacle and just something new, specifically if you're not used to Indian movies, yeah, absolutely. I think the director delivers in what they were attempting to do.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely, 100%. This is an A effort. Easy pass. I think, and going back to what the critic says, it's like, what, Lord of the Rings is grounded in reality? Like, that's plausible? I do think, and we will do more Indian films. We just, in part because we haven't picked a bad one yet. We'll just keep going until we got to go, oh, that's a stinker. And then keep going anyway. But I think this does give us another, let's say, here's the fantastical, or fantastical, mythical of Indian cinema. Three Idiots is a lot more grounded. It still has those musical elements. Say that again, Shashank. Sorry, I didn't.
I said much more. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much more grounded.
Yeah, it's more real. It's contemporary, and the musical elements are definitely just part of what comes with an Indian film. But it's, if you're looking for a more realistic film, then Three Idiots is a nice gateway drug. But this, if you just want to have a kind of crazy, as Jim said, balls out fun, this director's pass, easy. All right, final thoughts. Shashank, anything else you want to add?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. I think it's just a great...
Go ahead.
Go on. Go ahead. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit about its impact on Indian cinema and even Indian pop culture?
Yeah. So, to be honest, families in India are bound by tales of ancient epics. So, our grandfathers sit down and tell us these fantastical epics, like I mentioned, Ramayana and Mahabharata, basically tales of good triumphing over evil. And, they have huge scope. It's like Game of Thrones, but minus the nudity and the extreme violence. They have a huge scope and scale, but they, no film in India has been able to
performing statecraft.
Yeah, exactly.
Such a lie. But sorry, continue.
Yeah. So no film in India has been able to translate, these epics which we hear about so much or read about into a large scale film. So I think this film completely did that perfectly, at least for an Indian audience. So we were just wowed at the scope and scale of the film. So that's the first way it changed Indian cinema, because now more producers are backing these kind of big budget, heavy epic kind of films. They were not doing it initially. So that's the first way. And, this is a Telugu film, but it was a success all over India. So prior to Baahubali, okay, I think we lost Rob.
No, it's okay. So, keep going.
Prior to Baahubali, generally, most of the major successes all over India, they were Hindi films. So, a film like Three Idiots, that would be the biggest hit across India. Mm-hmm. But, what happened with Baahubali was, this was the first regional language film. Bollywood is the major industry. Bollywood has Hindi as its primary language. And those films are the major successes. But with Baahubali, regional cinema started getting recognized. So now people are open to viewing films which are not from their own native language. So the Hindi audience is viewing Telugu cinema or Tamil cinema. They don't have that language barrier anymore. So if I have to sum it up, it's a bit like Star Wars and Parasite. The impact that it had in an Indian context, it's similar to Star Wars and Parasite in terms of the scope and the scale and just the visual effects. It's like Star Wars. And in terms of us getting over the barrier of subtitles and just appreciating content from different cultures, because India itself is a very diverse country, I would say its impact would be something like Parasite. So I think that's how I would put it.
Very cool. No, that's a great take.
Well,
Jim.
I was just going to say that, for a regional language movie, it clearly carried enough clout to run in a Canadian weekend newspaper. So I in terms of how it has succeeded, it's gotten the attention of other people. And it's hard to cut through that, it made it. That's how it sort of came to our attention. I watched the trailer. I sent it to Rob. I said, "Holy crap, you have to see this." The trailer was the selling point for us. So
watched it. Type back, "We have to do this."
Yeah.
And followed quickly by, well, of course, with Shashank. Why? It's like,
yeah, exactly. But in terms of my final thoughts, it's funny when I watched it last night. When I went in to type in the Netflix search engine, I got about 7 hits, and I thought, I'm in trouble. like number one, make sure I watch the right one, and then there's the beginning, and I think there was another couple of other projects involving this, but it's clearly at the start of something for us anyway. And I'm definitely probably not today. I've got a few chores to do, but I'll be taking a look at it at some point this summer for sure.
You are living the one of the I say another theme, and then maybe we touched on, but maybe we didn't kind of pull, was that there is a very clear duty to family, especially to your mother. Like, holy doodles. That connection between a son and her mom and his mom. But that duty to family is definitely there. And Jim, you are living it. Doing your duty to your parents.
Yes.
Traveling halfway across a very large country to do your duty, whether it be as simple as taking care of the plants, watering the lawn, dealing with their stuff.
Yeah.
I hope you get a moment to rest your head on your stepmom's lap.
Well, I might go for a nap. I might go for a nap after this, but I'm good for now, I think.
All right, Shashank, what do you got going on? I will put a link to your channel. You haven't posted in a while. What?
I'm posted in over 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to? You going to try and get out any content while you're off, or while you're off of school, or is it more just, doing your summer reading and getting ready for school?
No, I'm thinking of posting more videos. So yeah, I'll probably post some Indian reviews on my channel. So
fantastic.
A new Indian movie or an Indian show, I think I would review that on my channel. I'm thinking of rebooting it actually. It's been a long while since I've uploaded. So yeah, I would be reviewing some Indian content on my channel.
Okay, very cool. Well, we'll make sure that we put a link to your channel in the pinned comment, along with a couple other things we've brought up in the show. Another thing, Shashank, where can we follow you on social media? Is Twitter the best?
I mean, I don't think my Twitter is the best because I don't post that much. I think you can subscribe to my channel. I'm really not that active on social media. Okay,
sounds good, my friend. All right, then that's what we encourage everyone to do. Find Shashank. I will pin it. I'll put it in the description. I will pin it to a comment. Check him out. Shashank, thank you so much for joining us.
That was awesome.
In this. And we look forward to, let's see if we can't collaborate a little more often, maybe not once every 9 months, maybe every 6 months or quarterly. It's always fun having you on our show. And our connection to you just makes our show that much bigger, I think, like in a
it's like we have a film pen pal.
Yes, true.
It's a good one.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. Well, again, Shashank couldn't have. You know what? I'm not sure we would have. Well, maybe we would have done this, but we wouldn't have had the benefit. It wouldn't have been as immediate, and it not necessarily. You are like kind of our guide. And sometimes you need a bit of a guide. As I like to think of our show as a bit of a guide to really getting into a film. You're a guide into getting into a film of what is a big cinema that I think we should all be a little more aware of. All right. Well, on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye to our wonderful chat. First of all, newcomer Shruti Vchari. Shruti Vchari. Say it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Vchari.
Do you know Shruti? Is that?
Yeah, she's my sister.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, so it's just not that strange to the channel. It's not
a family
not a total
theme.
shock to her.
Family theme.
You know what? We appreciate that you brought an extra viewer to our show.
That's awesome.
Well, and please pass on our compliments in real life.
Sure.
So Shruti, of course, Vlad Walt from Walt's Flicks Picks. Great to see you here, man. And I think
recently gotten his 100th subscriber. Sorry to interrupt.
Outstanding. That's fantastic. Well, let's give a wave to Walt to celebrate his 100th subscriber. And then I'm not sure if he's here anymore, but Ahmed Jelly Duck 100, our man in Kuwait. Great to see you here as well. Thanks for popping in, man. And I think that's about it. Anything else?
No, I think
we're good.
Covered the waterfront. I need another coffee.
Shashank, can you hang out for a little bit with us in the green room? We'll have a little wrap up chat. All right, everyone. I am going to then send you guys off to the green room one by one, and then let's take this chat. Oh, Shruti does add a quick comment. Interesting, Baahubali. Oh, well, never mind. Sorry, I did put that up. All right, everyone. Again, thank you all very, very much. We really do appreciate you guys coming, checking us out. I cannot speak well enough of you, the best chat on the internet. If you've come by later, please, tell us what you thought of the show. Tell us what you thought of Baahubali, the beginning. Leave if you've seen parts 1 and 2. Be cool on how much you reveal about part 2. And thank you all for attending. And I think it's about time to, let's throw on the credits.